As I mentioned earlier, this is sort of our workforce day, workforce afternoon at any rate. This is we had Daniel present about workforce information, and now we're going to go to another important presenter, and that's some folks from our Texas Workforce Commission. Very pleased to have them with us. They are important partners for a lot of people, but they're important partners for the Texas Education Agency. We work with them very closely in helping to provide and get out information that's valuable for educators and teachers and parents and districts that are trying to make decisions about workforce plans and advisory committees and so on and so forth. So you're going to hear a lot about that today. Here's some information about our next topic. It's the workforce and labor market trends. And Doyle Fuchs is going to be the presenter. He has been the Director of Labor Market and Career Information at the Texas Workforce Commission since December of 2014. This is his first foray into the world of labor market statistics, other than as an occasional data user. Prior to joining TWC, Doyle served as Chief Economist at the Texas Department of Agriculture and was a statistician and manager with the U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Agricultural Statistics Service. He is a statistician, an economist, a numbers guy with a passion for translating those numbers into useful, real-world, real-time information that can have a meaningful impact. So I think you'll enjoy this presentation. Help me welcome Doyle Fuchs.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Dale. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you to everybody for allowing me and my office to have a little bit of a part in y'all's conference. We really appreciate the opportunity to get here in front of y'all and talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we have to offer that could possibly help you in your jobs in some way. What does the Labor Market and Career Information Shop at the Texas Workforce Commission do? Well, we have two basic functions. One is to produce and disseminate labor market statistics. We have a partnership with the U.S. Department of Labor that guides most of our data collection and survey and data kind of activities. And so we've got about 2/3 of our staff that work on contacting employers, collecting wage and occupation information, analyzing information that comes out of things like the American Community Survey and current employment statistics surveys that Census Bureau do. And there are number crunchers and do a really good job of that. Then the rest of the staff takes that information that's produced on the statistics side of the house and pushes it out to people like y'all and other data users to hopefully, provide some information, some useful information to them, and along with the tools that y'all can use to put that information to work. So what do we have for y'all? What do we do or what kind of questions can we answer from a career development and education aspect? That relate to y'all. And there's three basic questions that people need to ask themselves, I guess, when they're starting to look for a job. And that's, what do I want to do? They have to go on their journey and try to discover what it is that they want to do. And there's 2 or 3 kind of basic questions that come into that. What do I like? What am I good at? And how is that going to contribute to the value of a company or some organization that I might want to go to work for? And so we have some tools and we have some applications that help students, adult learners, other job seekers kind of go through that assessment process and try to figure it out what it is they want to be when they grow up. Like Daniel, I went on a journey of discovery to try to figure out what I wanted to do when I grow up. Mine took 30 some odd years though. I didn't quite get it done in a few months. And so I bounced around the country some with USDA, worked here in Austin for the Texas Department of Agriculture, landed at the Texas Workforce Commission less than a year ago, and I'm a late arriver to this workforce information and career development information game, but I found something here that is really meaningful, can have an impact on people's lives, and can help people make some of those decisions like Daniel was talking about, you know, finding what you want to do, where you can be productive, and things that make you happy when you go to work. So the other two questions is that we've probably come to bear even in a bigger way is what's the market for what I want to do? You know, what kind of demand is there for the kinds of work I want to do? What does it pay? Can I make a living doing that? And you know, how much is it going to cost me? Where do I have to go to school to learn how to do that? Are there steps I need to go to or certifications I need? We can help people explore that. And question 3, who's your competition? You know, we can look at the supply side of things too and look at recent graduates. What kind of workers are in the pipeline coming up for the career field that you might be interested in pursuing? So let's take a look at a few of those things. Dale said, I'm a numbers guy, I'm an economist, and so I got to show you some charts with some numbers and stuff in them. So talking about the market, what's the market for jobs right now? Well, unemployment rates are at the lowest levels they've been since early 2008. For Texas in August, our unemployment rate was down to 4.4%. It was actually up a little bit. It bottomed out at a little bit under 4. So the U.S. is a little bit higher than that. It tends to track higher almost all the time. Recently, you know, there's been some economic developments around the state that have kind of depressed the market in some areas. Oil prices are down, as you might have heard, and so demand for jobs in that particular sector and supporting sector is not quite what it had been, and so that's reflected in some of the numbers that we're seeing. We can kind of slice and dice the employment numbers by geographic area in addition to occupations and industries. And looking at the largest counties in Texas, and well, just let me go back. No. I managed to. It's not doing anything. So anyway, I'll talk about it. The largest counties in the state are generally doing as well or better than the statewide numbers. 2 exceptions to that are Fort Bend County and Harris County. And why? Back to oil and gas. Those 2 locations are particularly dependent on oil and gas and related industries, and so we continue to see, you know, a little bit slower growth and higher unemployment rates there. So let's try this again. There we go. Talking about growth rates, our economy, our job market continues to grow. There continues to be opportunities for jobs. And why is it doing that? I lean on the thing, and it must be the mouse. So I've got to stand still and talk to the microphone. The job growth has slowed down since the first of the year. We're still growing, we're still adding jobs, but not quite at the rates that we were at the first of the year. Growth rates in Texas for the first time in a long time dipped below national levels in August. Year to year, August 2014 to August 2015, employment grew in Texas a little under 2%, a little over 2% for the U.S. Again, kind of the same theme, oil and gas downturn has slowed things down there for us. Okay, now I'm going to get this figured out. We can also slice up our jobs data by industry. And the two major industry sectors that have showed the slowest growth over the last few months and have been negative or are losing jobs year over year for several months are mining and logging, which includes oil and gas, and then number two is manufacturing. The manufacturing downturn is something that, or losses have been something that's happening for a long time. You know, if you drive through some industrial sectors of the state, parts of Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, some of the larger cities that have a larger manufacturing base, you see a lot of those plants that either aren't operating anymore, they've been taken over by something else, or they've got a lot fewer cars in the parking lot than they used to. Other sectors have shown some pretty decent growth, including leisure and hospitality, and number two is educational and health services. And that's kind of a theme that we're going to see through some of these other slides, that as our population grows, as our population ages, we need more healthcare workers, we need more educators to educate the growing population of kids, and then we need something for those people to do when they're off on Saturday and Sunday, so our leisure and hospitality industries are also growing. The areas of the state that kind of tend to lead things for Texas are in the triangle from Dallas-Fort Worth to Houston to San Antonio, including the Austin area. And so we wanted to take a look at kind of what was happening along the I-35 corridor, just to kind of give you a snapshot of some of the other kind of things that we can look at. And out of that corridor, Laredo continues to show some decent growth. Not surprising, that's the largest inland port in the nation. There's more goods that passes over the border in Laredo than any other land port. And it rivals some of the larger seaports as far as the traffic. So it continues to be, you know, kind of a growing kind of area, growing economy. And then, well, you can see the others. But all of those I-35 corridor cities are showing stronger job growth than the state in general. Looking at wage rates. Over the last 13 years, our average wages and average annual wages for all jobs all over the state has grown from about $36,000 a year in 2001 to $53,000 now. That's a little bit better than the pace of inflation. I think if inflation adjusted, going back to 2001, that growth would be or the salaries now would be somewhere right around $50,000. So we're showing a little bit better growth than the U.S. as a whole, and also a little better growth than what just the pace of inflation would have shown. So I mentioned population as being one of the factors in our job growth, especially for y'all's part of the world in education and also in healthcare. And just wanted to I got curious one day and wanted to go back and kind of see how things looked at some point in the past and where we are now. So back in 1990, the Texas population was just short of 17 million people. We had a civilian labor force, about half that, about 8.5 million. Unemployment rate was 6.3%, and our top three industries were manufacturing, retail, trade, and educational services. In the last 24 years, jump forward to 2014, our population has grown to almost 28 million people. So we've almost doubled in population since 1990. Our civilian labor force has gone from about 8 million or 8.5 million to over 13 million. Unemployment rates dropped to 5.1%. And our top three industries, healthcare moved up to number 1, retail, trade, and education stayed at 2 and 3. So There's some other things in the population that are also affecting jobs, affecting the economy, affecting how we go about doing our business. The composition of the population is changing. We're have a large sector of the population that's getting older and moving into retirement age. All us baby boomers are starting to leave the workforce, or at least think about leaving the workforce. We've got a large population of a large minority population. The Hispanic population is growing at a pretty good clip. We have more women in the workforce than we did in 1990. That workforce is better educated for the most part. And our industry mix is changing. Less manufacturing, less goods-based type jobs, and more service-type jobs. So, how do we look compared to other states? We're still among the top 4 or 5 states as far as growth goes. Between now and 2020, IHS Global predicted that our economy would grow at about 1.8% compared to 2.4% in Nevada. My numbers got kind of messed up here, but in Nevada doesn't have a whole lot of workers, so they get a little bit of change makes a big difference in their percentages, so don't count them. But all right, now we've kind of looked at where we are as far as our economy goes. You know, we're in a recovery phase. We're getting better. The recovery has not gone as fast or as far as we'd probably like to see. We haven't seen the job growth that we would have thought we'd have had this deep into a recovery. Oil and gas is kind of holding things back to some extent. On the other hand, it's making our cost of living a little bit less because we're not paying as much at the pump. So, you know, but like I said, job growth has not been where it is. Wage growth hasn't necessarily been where we would like it to be at this stage in a recovery. We're going to see why as we look at some of these other slides and how that might impact your students when they go about trying to find work. So this chart takes a look at the Achieve Texas clusters, expected job growth through 2020. The wages are in the up and down axis on the chart, and then the percentage growth is across the horizontal axis on the bottom. So the higher up on the page the sector is, the more it pays. The bigger the bubble, the more workers there are in that sector, and the further along it is to the right, the more growth we expect. So you can see on here that STEM occupations are expecting kind of moderate growth through 2020. They pay the best, but it's a pretty small bubble. There's not a lot of jobs there, so there's a lot of competition for those jobs, and it takes a little bit more to get into those types of jobs than it does some of them kind of lower down, the bigger bubbles lower down. One of the biggest bubbles on here is for hospitality and tourism. We need a lot of hospitality and tourism workers. The folks that helped out here at the hotel today are a good example of that. But the jobs don't pay terribly well, and the growth is expected to be somewhere kind of in the middle of the scale. So healthcare and education, again, kind of wages kind of in the middle of the scale. We need a lot of workers in that area, so the growth is expected to be higher out on the depends on which side I'm looking at, I guess, on that end of the scale or this end of the scale. Another kind of view of what we expect to happen kind of over the long term. Our current projections run to 2022 with a 2012 base, so you'll see a few of those slides coming up. We're getting ready to update that with a 2014 base out to 2024. Those projections will be released later this year, or later in 2016, I'm sorry, and that'll take into account some of the slowdown we've seen in oil and gas. So you're not going to see that, you know, the oil and gas side of things isn't going to be reflected as strongly in these projections as they will in the next round. But looking at where we expect to see the most growth in numbers of employees by industry sector, again, health and, over the long term, health and social assistance are showing the biggest growth. I said, I'm getting older and I need more people to take care of me. So, and then professional and business services, these are, part of it's supervisors and management staff. The others are like legal and accounting services, that kind of thing, office workers, support staff, administrative folks, and then the like waste management gets thrown in here too. Leisure and hospitality, and then y'all can read on down the line. In manufacturing, showing relatively small level of growth, construction also, and then, like I said, on down the line. Okay, in terms of fastest growing occupations in the state over this long-term projection, and this is in percentage of growth, and there's some minimum number of workers before it gets counted in these percentages, but our fastest growing occupation over the long term, diagnostic medical sonographers. And they pay pretty well. So there's not a lot of jobs in that field, but what there are, you know, there's good growth and it's expected to pay well. Interpreters and translators, as you go on down the list, there's engineers, systems analysts, construction type workers, technicians and physical assistant or physician assistants, and then welders are down at the bottom of this particular scale. Again, this is just the top 10. Looking at those same kinds of numbers by jobs that are adding the most jobs, or occupations that are adding the most jobs rather than industries. We've also got fast food workers in there, personal care aides. A lot of these jobs, they're adding a lot of workers, but again, they're not paying terribly well till you get down to registered nurses and educators. Y'all do make the top 10 list, at least as number 9 with elementary school teachers. Again, more people, more kids, more teachers, and then more healthcare people to take care of us old folks. Looking at it by projected annual job openings, and that was the last of the long-term slides. We've also got some ways to look at short-term demand. You know, what is the current demand for occupations, and one of the ways that we do that, probably the primary way we do that, is by services like Help Wanted Online that scrub online job listings and create some measurements out of that give us some idea of what current real-time job demand might be. There's some shortcomings with it, primarily that not all jobs get advertised online. A lot do, but there's some sectors of the economy that don't. And they don't always accurately reflect how many openings a company or an organization might have. We were at a meeting up in, I think, Waco, and one of the employers in the audience got up and says that your online job demand numbers for this area are not right. My industry is not represented here at all. I know we've got more workers than what this is reflecting. We post those jobs online, so you need to go back and dig around in your numbers a little bit. So we got to asking him a few questions. How many job openings do you have? And at his company, it was something like 150 jobs that they had open at that time and wanting to hire for, and that they were actively seeking employees for. And we kind of drilled down into that a little bit more. They posted 3 job advertisements, 3 listings that covered all of those workers. Okay, so they needed 150 workers, but they only needed them in 3 different job categories, And so they posted 3 jobs. They were open until they got all of those filled, and it's like a continuous posting kind of thing. And so they always only had 3 job listings for all however many workers they needed to hire nationwide. McDonald's, I think, posts one job nationwide. You go to their website, you fill out an application, and then you can tell it where you want to apply for that job. But they have one job posting online for all of their workers that they need nationwide in all their franchise restaurants. So, like I said, there's some shortcomings in these numbers, but they're about the best that we can get. So, for 2000, or for this last 90-day period that just ended on yesterday, through the 7th, the number 1 job posted online for Texas was truck drivers. There's still a tremendous amount of demand for tractor trailer heavy truck drivers. Registered nurses, number 2. Those 2 jobs, I've only been doing this thing for about 10 months now that I've really been paying attention to these kind of numbers. But those 2 have been the 1 and 2 jobs on these HWL job listings for as long as I've been here, and for as long as some of my files went back as I was digging through things there. So truck drivers, registered nurses, retail salespersons are almost always near the top, along with supervisors of retail sales workers, customer service representatives, and on down the line. I never know which button to push. Here we go. Now, who are the top 20 employers in Texas posting jobs online? Robert Half International's number 1, and they are a temporary employment service, right? God. See, I need to hire one of those technical kind of people. Where's that lady that was sitting in the back here? No. I know better than to ask one of these. No. I just keep my hands off of stuff. But Robert Half, Accenture, I think, is a healthcare company, as is HCA. So we see a lot of retail sales type organizations there. Healthcare, University of Texas system is near the top. I'm an Aggie, so I don't like to see them on anything. Although some of the shine is taken off of that rivalry here lately. I should have brought a picture. I could put it up there. I could. Somebody sent me a picture the other day of Bevo with a paper sack over his head. So, yeah. So anyhow, now that I've lost half of y'all, I'm going to go. So okay, we've looked at some employment numbers. Our our current economic situation, where we're at, where we think we're headed as far as our projections go, what our current demand might be for from the online job listings. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about some things that may be a little bit closer to your heart in all of this. And some of the places where using our data really gets exciting to me. I've shown some of these applications that Lori's going to show you to, like, my nieces, and they get excited about some of the things that they can explore around out there and some of the information that our data can reveal. And one of the reasons that this kind of information is important is that jobs are changing. The requirements for jobs change. Companies aren't trying to hire the same kinds of people that they were hiring 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So for somebody like me that's been kind of out of the job market and out of tracking those kind of things and not testing that market a whole lot, I've got a lot to learn about what's going on out there as far as this job situation goes and what kinds of things employers are looking for. And so let's kind of maybe explore some of that for just a bit. Centerpoint Energy said this has been about a year or so ago now, that they know that they don't know how their job requirements are going to change, but they know they're going to change. If you'll read along with me, he said that if you had a high school in the past, if you had a high school education and could learn some technical skills, they had a job for you. Now they require, just to get in the door, they require an associate's degree or some sort of post-secondary certification. And that's their beginning requirement for almost every job that they post. 93 out of the top 100 paying jobs in the state of Texas last year required some form of post-secondary education or certification. It's not all degrees, but it includes certification or licensing that requires some educational requirements, that kind of thing. 93 out of the top 100. 175 of the top 200 jobs in terms of annual salary required some form of post-secondary education. So you don't have to go to college, you don't have to get a degree, but having some form of post-secondary education is going to put you a leg up on your competition. The largest occupations in terms of number of jobs that don't require a post-secondary degree was on the screen momentarily. I hope you all saw that. Number one, again, we saw them earlier, is truck drivers. Then nursing assistants, LVNs. These are, and let me put a little caveat on here. The Bureau of Labor Statistics at the Department of Labor defines what kind of entry-level education requirements are necessary to get into a job field. That's what we use for, classifying the education requirements in our wage numbers. So kind of keep that in mind. Some of these I don't necessarily agree with. One of the 7 jobs of the top 100 that didn't require a post-secondary education in that slide I showed you a few minutes ago, this one of those 7 that didn't require that post-secondary training was a commercial pilot. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know that I want to get on an airline flight or any kind of flight with somebody that hadn't had some sort of training. Now, what they don't have to have is a degree or a certificate that, official kind of certification from any certifying agency that they can fly a plane. They have to have the training, they have to go through that, but still it's kind of scary thought. I think one of those guys did fly a plane. I was on here not too long ago, though. Anyway, one of the things to kind of take note of on this slide about the largest occupations that don't require post-secondary education, there's only 3 of them, 3 of the top 10 that on average pay better than the state average salary. Okay, 7 out of the 10 pay at or below what the state average annual wage is. And in 2014, that was about a little over $45,000 a year. Okay, move that up to jobs requiring an associate's degree for entry. Okay, you'll notice there that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, 7 out of the 10 require pay more than the state annual average salary. Those that don't, a couple of them are pretty close to the line. So, again, registered nurses. Some areas of the state, Austin, I think in particular, I'm told that in this area, most employers here won't consider a registered nurse that doesn't have a bachelor's degree. But that's sort of a minimum requirement in this area, and it's becoming so in others. So some of these kind of things might change over time, or they will change over time. But then we move up to bachelor's degrees. And out of the top 10, there's only one occupation that we track that requires a post-secondary education that doesn't pay at or above the average annual salary for the state. Thank you. My guys here didn't say anything. They just let me go on. So, and some of these pay significantly better than the average. The only one that doesn't is substitute teachers. And they don't work every day in a lot of cases. So, okay. Now, one of the other little pieces of information that we gather that is kind of interesting to look at in comparison to some of this, the other numbers we've seen, is what kind of careers are students interested in? Okay. And we have an occupation hotline that TEA helps fund, where students can call in and they can ask for brochures and bulletins on specific occupations, 3 at a time. They can call in as much as they want, but they can get 3 every time they call. So we track which of those occupation bulletins kids are asking for the most. So what's number 1? Multimedia game designer. We tell kids all the time, do what you like and you'll never work another day in your life, right? So I love playing video games, so I want to be a game designer. We had another guy walk up to, I think it was our other trainer, was out at a career day not too long ago. Kid walked up and said, I know what I'm going to be. I'm going to go into horticulture. And so Michelle, the lady that was there, said, well, that's great. You know what you want to do. You know, he's all excited about it. It's a good job, pays well. She kind of looks at and so she was patting him on the back, and he went on, and she got to talking to the person at the table next to her and said, you know, that guy, he was really good. He knew exactly what he wants to do, and he's got his goal, and he's going for it. And I said, what did he tell you he wanted to do? And he says he was going to go into horticulture. And he said, yeah, he wants to move to Colorado and grow pot. So Michelle is there saying, good Lord, I just encouraged him to go for it, you know. So I guess the lesson is sometimes it pays to ask another question or two. Number 2 on the list, professional athletes. Okay. Everybody can be a star. I got a trophy playing soccer in the 3rd grade, so I'm going to play. Now, doctor, start getting a little bit more practical. CSI has had an influence on our society. They not only show us how to get away with crimes, they also inspire young people to be forensic science technicians. Nurse, CEO, I don't want to work in the mailroom. You know, I don't want to do some of the jobs that Daniel did. I want to be the boss. Interesting, there was another survey done a few years ago that asked kids how much money they expected to make like 2 or 3 years post-graduation. Average was $120,000 to $150,000 a year. So that's the CEO guys here. Veterinarian, architect, high school teacher. So y'all are inspiring some kids, okay? They don't know how much y'all make, but they, you know. And then number 10 is truck driver. So, all right. I'm an economist, statistician. I got to throw one formula up here for you. And remember this one when y'all go back. And I would ask whether anybody can tell me what this means. And I know I just made it up, so nobody's going to know what it is. But it stands for math and science multiplied by a post-secondary education equals more money. Okay. We see that time and again in the data. The one really key point, and I saw this editorial cartoon, and it resonated for us job-wise. If you're the poor guy that's a high school dropout or have less than a high school education, your odds of making that basket are awfully small, okay? So the good jobs are a pretty remote target for you. So We want to try, our organization, one of the things, one of our missions is try to move people closer to the basket. Okay. If we look at median earnings and employment numbers and unemployment rates by levels of education, as you would expect, as you move up the chart and educational requirements increase as you get higher in the chart, unemployment rate goes down and average earnings go up. This is kind of another way to look at that chart I just showed you, but one of the really interesting things that I found on here is that there's a significant amount of overlap between salaries when you start getting to the associate degree level. Okay, you can make as much money with an associate's degree, true at the top end, but with an associate's degree as you can at the bottom end of a PhD. So, I mean, you don't have to be a PhD to rise on the job scale. One thing I thought was there's a research center at Georgetown University that looks at workforce and education issues. The director there was quoted not too long ago saying that education isn't just about getting a job, though, and y'all know that, and it's something that we need to keep in mind on my end of the business. Education is not just about getting a job. It's about expanding the knowledge and the experience of those students to give them the opportunities to be what they want to be. Okay, what employers want? Specific job skills, education attainment, relevant work experience, and the last thing I'll probably have time to talk about is soft skills and social competency. Chevron noted that a few years ago they hired people for their strong backs and weak minds. I qualified. No, didn't you say you worked for Chevron? Okay. I'm sorry. And then now they hire people that they expect them to be able to do more than that manual labor. They're expecting them to use their brains. Social skills and social competency. Executive with Boeing, their HR director was quoted saying, "We hire people for their technical skills. We promote them and fire them because of their soft skills." So we as workforce developers need to also try to help develop those social skills, those soft skills that our kids need to be successful. Need to be able to communicate, think critically, not just repeat what they saw or push the hamburger icon on the cash register. They need to be able to think about what they're doing, be able to solve problems creatively, have a positive and pleasant attitude. When you're getting ready to pull that fold, you got to have a pretty positive attitude about what you're getting ready to do. Okay. You need to be able to get along with your coworkers, and you need to be able to follow directions. Show up to work on time, work when you get there, okay? And then able to focus. We're constantly distracted every day by our cell phones, by our social media contacts and whatnot, and so it's becoming harder and harder to focus on work at work. Career development is not always a lateral path, not always a career ladder. You don't always start out as a stock clerk in the mailroom and move up to CEO. Sometimes you got to take some twists and turns to get there, and you need a support system along the way. You need somebody on the other end of the belay rope to make sure that if you fall, they can catch you and help you get back on your feet. The guy in the green shirt at the bottom there, he's doing a pretty good job. He's paying attention to what his climbing partner is doing. The guy in the black shirt, I don't know, he's probably checking Facebook or something. But look at the poor guy that he's belaying over there he's the middle guy. He's in a world of hurt. He needs some support. He's getting ready to. Okay, how do you tap into some of this? Lori's going to get into that in a lot more detail in a minute, so I'm not going to steal her thunder. I will tell you if you go to our website, you can sign up for things like we've got a Gov delivery service that'll we can send you emails on a regular basis. We can update you on labor market information. We can send you information like Lori's getting ready to go over with you. There she is. We've also got a number of web-based tools that are out there for the taking. Everything that we put out there is free. You don't have to register. You don't have to pay to get in. We do charge for some of our hard copy publications just to recover the cost of printing and shipping them to you. You can call us and you'll get a free counselor package. You can pick one up in the back of the room. And those are all free. And we've got some vehicles for giving us a call. Lori will have some of this information up longer so that you can capture it. And my presentation's on the computer here, so if y'all want, post a copy sometime, it'll be there. Last but not least, remember the things that we can help you with is what do you want to be when you grow up? What's the market? And who's your competition? With that, thank you. I think I'm out of time. But if anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Doyle. I think it's very clear to see that Doyle is a person who has a passion for, as I said in my introduction, translating those numbers into useful, real-world information that can have a meaningful impact. That's really great.